Hello everybody. Naturally, as soon as I start recording, the wind starts picking up, so hopefully it's not too bad. But it's a beautiful day out, and we're going to start tackling rust. For those that don't remember, this is a 1989 McBride horse trailer. It was rotten right through to the core, and it's now much better. It's actually solid. But the gentleman who did all this work for us, because it needed a proper shop to do it in, he only painted where the welds were for the inner structure and that he built, just to protect the welds. Unfortunately, as you can see, none of the other bare metal was protected, and by the time we got this trailer back, it was already basically winter. No paint would stick, so it was cross our fingers and hope. So we've got all this, which really is just surface rust. Like, there's no pitting, no bumps to it. And then we have in here where it's starting to pit a little on these newer fenders, because again, they were left bare other than the very tops. And then this part, you can sort of see the difference in the red. This is actually the original, and we've got all this hard, heavy pitting and nasty rust here. So to paint this thing and whatnot and keep it nice and protect our investment, as it were, that's just primer. It's Rust-Oleum Oxide Red Primer, he said, or Tremclad, Tremclad Oxide Red, I should say. Rust-Oleum makes them, but whatever. So we have to strip off all that rust so we can paint it, because even rust paint is not gonna like going over that, because what you end up with if you use even rust paint over rust, like, well, I need rust, is this. See if I can get that to focus. That was covered, and because it was painted over a little bit of surface rust, yeah. So what I've been doing, I've got this side, these 4 squares down to pretty much bare metal. If you look here, what I've been using is this unfortunately on a drill. I couldn't find the one for the grinder, which would have made this way easier and kinder on my wrist. It's just a stripping pad made by 3M. I got a Canadian Tire. They do sell the one for the grinder, it's just they didn't have any. And starting early this morning, we're now in another lockdown where only essential things can be done, and they don't consider metalworking essential, so I can't really go out and get them. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is use that pad and probably go through a couple charges on that drill and get every panel, every one of these squares, ground down to bare metal, or as close as I can get. Now if you look, you see there's still little bits of rust in there. So what I'm going to use is another Rust-Oleum product, technically. It's made by Krud Kutter. The Must for Rust. So this is a rust remover. It dissolves rust. It does a chemical reaction, and as long as you keep it wet, surface wet. Now this is a gel, so it should adhere to that fairly well. You shouldn't have to keep spraying it over and over to keep the surface wet. Put it on, 5 to 10 minutes later, wipe it off, and the rust should go away. So I'm at the point with those 4 squares now that I should be able to spray this stuff on and get rid of that little bit of rust that's sort of ingrained in it right now. And that will give me a good clear surface that I can then hit all this with prep spray and close up these gaps in the primer and seal everything up so it's nice and safe and good for a little bit until we can go and get paint. So we'll pause right here. We'll spray some of this stuff on. and see what the results are. Just as a side note, it does say to quickly, in the instructions, to quickly wipe it down with the wet paper towel, etc. Yeah, that's what came off of that. What looked like clean metal. Uh, that's not going over any of this paint on the sides, any of this primer. That's literally just the metal. So even though it might look clean, it's not. Follow the instructions. Okay, so using rubber gloves, a little sponge brush, and the Krud cutter, put it on here, and because of the heat, etc., it's drying a lot quicker than you would think. That's what it looks like at the moment. Had a little extra on the brush, so I also decided to go down here, and all that is now looking like bare metal. Yeah, that looked like that about, maybe a minute ago, maybe. You're supposed to leave it on for 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and then wipe it off with a wet cloth. So, yeah, we'll be back in 15 minutes and see what this looks like. Alright, so 15 minutes later, quick little spray with a hose to get the foam and whatnot that formed off of it, and yeah, I mean, you can even see a little bit of reflection there. Like, that's clean metal. The most impressive thing, I think, is that I'd use the disc on to strip off, this top layer of heavy kind of crud. But this, I didn't touch. That's just purely that Krud cutter being, like, spread on. So, I mean, obviously that needs another treatment. It's not clean yet, like, or clean enough to paint. But considering it's all started off like that, and it's transitioned into this, that's impressive. So I guess my next step is to get those, and then use some prep spray, and get priming. Seal all this up. Alright, so sometime later, a little bit of prep wipe, some drying time, and some spray. We end up with, yay, all primed, or at least the side of it. I didn't do down here because I'm going to take the tires off, the wheels off, and actually get up and around properly. Also, that way I can get to the fender, underneath the fender. That I probably won't end up painting in this. I'll end up using like a bed liner. But then because that can is empty and that's the only one I had, and it's starting to get dark, I decided, hey, I'll use up the battery on the drill. And I've been going around, and anywhere that feels a little bit raised, a little bit rough, some of the paint's missing maybe, I've been going around and scraping off the paint. I know that this has been, like, for that to happen, that's been decades of neglect. So for, me opening up a little pocket that was starting to rust, and it'll be fine for the couple of days it'll take me to go and get more primer and that. But yeah, I'll just sort of smooth this front end out, mask off the roof and the windows, and sort of go to town with that primer. Do that all the way around. Then this needs the same treatment as the other side. Same deal with the fenders. And at the back, it's going to be the same treatment as the front, where, as you can tell, it's sort of see some of the swirl marks anywhere where it's a little raised, a little off. Just go ahead and knock it down with that wheel, and we'll prime it up, and it'll be ready for top coat of color. After that, it's wiring it, which I have most of the things for it. We really want to try and do like round lights for the tail lights, but you need sockets for those, like a cup receptacle. So I don't know. We'll see what what ends up happening. It might end up being square lights, which doesn't really go with it being, an 89, but whatever. We'll see how it goes. I've got new lug nuts for it now, so, because I think we're missing like 8 or something like that of them. So I've got new lug nuts there. Obviously, that's our spare to go up there. Other than that, yeah, it should be good. Like I said, grease the bearings in another video. I have to grease the bearings still and do backing, or not backing plates, entire brake assemblies on it. Because by law, with what this thing's rated for weight-wise, I can't not have some form of trailer brakes. So, yeah. So that's been my adventure for the day. Stay tuned and we'll see how this progresses. Hopefully I'll get it done inside of a couple weeks. I'd be good with that. Talk to you guys later.